All right. So, welcome everybody. This is so exciting. So, Emily is here with us today, and she is actually our first guest speaker, which is super cool. Yay for Emily. So she's going to be talking to us today about worthiness, confidence, getting our confidence from God as an extension of His love, and a lot more than that. She'll share with us a lot more detail. So I'm excited to have her. Emily Lewis is her full name. And I'm just going to share a little bit about her with you all before we start. So, welcome, Emily. Just want to say hi first before I totally, take
And
it
jump
away.
in.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi,
Yeah,
Cynthia. Thanks for having me.
of
It's an
course.
honor to be here.
Yes, thank you. Awesome. Okay. So she's going to be sharing with us her wisdom and the confidence that we can have in God through His love, and just feel fully accepted in that, and not feel like we have to perform or we have to people please or we have to do anything else besides be who we were created to be. So Emily also has a podcast called Abundant Grace, and in there she helps Christians stop trying to prove themselves and instead rest. I love that word, rest, in who God says they are and confidently be themselves. So this is so perfect for us because I was kind of looking back in the lessons earlier. And in lesson one, we talk about mindset and beliefs, and then we talk about overcoming self sabotage. And then after that, we talk about creating your why. Like, why is this important to you? Why do you feel like, you really wanted to participate in this program, in this group, and what it is that you need from it for your future, for the long haul? And then also a big part of this too, and we still talk about this even in our group on Saturday, we're talking about challenging our negative beliefs. And with that, like kind of identifying them first, that's the hardest part, is we just say things or think things or believe things and don't even realize that we're doing it just because it's our norm. But when it starts to get us stuck, then we start to realize, oh, that's a negative belief that's kind of cropping up and surfacing, and maybe I should start taking care of it. So once those surface, or once we start to dig in and kind of journal those and realize what they are, then we can come up with truth statements instead of what we were saying to ourselves. Truth statements, and we talked about that in lesson two. So putting together truth statements about who you really are, your I am statements about who you are in Christ and who you really are, and then also challenging those negative beliefs with scripture and with I am statements about truth of who you are. So yeah, so and the other thing I was mentioning to Emily earlier too is that I think we might have talked about this briefly, one of our groups or something, about people pleasing. So people pleasing, I know, is something that I struggled with for a while, and finally, I think, pretty much recovered. I mean, there might be little things here and there I don't even realize anymore. But I think it's something that we can all learn from in one way or another, especially with social media so rampant and always telling us, what we should be or who we should be or how we should be, and uh, by people pleasing, how we could get more self-acceptance and value by pleasing other people. So anyway, so this is perfect timing for us. And so this is things that we talk about in our program. And I thought it'd be awesome to have Emily on to really dive a little bit deeper into the core root and foundation of all of these beliefs and thoughts and things that we say to ourselves or believe about ourselves or believe about the world or our relationship with God, but really get to the root of it, understand what it's all about, and maybe uncover a few things today. So, all right, Emily. So, with that, probably the best thing to do is maybe start. You want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to this place where sharing this message is so important to you and to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I call myself a worthiness and confidence coach, and I love how unlikely that is. And of course, we know that the things that we overcome are sometimes the things that we can help other people with the most. And that's true for me, where I spent years concerned what other people thought and what God thought, in an unhealthy way, like trying to prove myself, trying to do all the things. And the foundation for all of that proving for me came from a religious background. Now that can come from so many different places, whether it's excelling in sports, we can get this vision of this is who I have to be in order to be loved or valued or seen, or it can come from academics, it can come from your job, it can come from family systems and dynamics and relationships. So think about those as I talk through like the foundation that was laid for me. It can come from different places. But for me, it was religion. It was a prescription for how to how to do right, what to believe, how to think about it. Not really how to think, but what to think. These are the rules, follow them, and then you'll be safe and
Mhm.
accepted by God and by the church community. And being a natural achiever myself, I adopted those for myself and tried to follow them really hard and wanted to be accepted. Because this is something that can help us all release any shame or guilt we have around people pleasing, is that it's so natural for us to want to be accepted. We were built and wired for community. So if you want other people to like you, that's a good thing, right? We should want that. But it can get kind of wonky when we feel like it's our job to control how other people see us. So then we're operating out of our perception of their perception of us, and it can get really messy when we are trying to anticipate what they might think of us, and then base our actions on that. And then, so back to my story, what really shifted and changed everything was when I was gifted a faith crisis, and it like flipped the apple cart over. And I was able to start asking questions that had felt off limits before. Because when we're living in a specific paradigm, it can feel impossible to think of being wrong. Like I was so afraid of being wrong that you don't ask those questions. But when everything starts to fall apart, you start going, okay, if this isn't true about me, then what else isn't true? If this isn't true about God, what else isn't true?
Mhm.
And then we can like get to wholeness and healing. And in asking those questions, I experienced God's love in a way that I'd never experienced it before. It was unconditional. It wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't threatening to leave like I had perceived he was before. I hadn't felt like he was going to walk away if I asked too many questions. He was still there. And that kind of unconditional love, again, flipped everything on its head, because I didn't have to prove myself anymore. I didn't have to work for love. I didn't have to work for value. And that was the first thing that shifted, was my motivation.
That's awesome.
Rather than doing things out of fear or shame or guilt, I could do it from this place of I'm so deeply loved, so I can love others well.
That's so cool. That's so, every time I think about that or living that way, that just gives me a sense of freedom. Like
Mm-hmm.
all the heaviness, the burdens, the trying, the having to, that performance just like is non-existent. It just falls off. And then
Yeah.
it's like easier to breathe, it's easier to do life. Um, there's just that's, I mean, I guess that's the fruit of the spirit. I mean, that's like peace, it's just that,
Yeah.
oh, I can just be and not have to strive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I definitely can relate. I know for me, I grew up in a family where it was, and I know my parents love me and they're amazing, but very performance based. So um, if you do this, you're going to get a lot of accolades. If you don't do that, okay, whatever. But oh, look at so and so is achieving this. Wow, they're so great. So it wasn't even necessarily specifically towards me, but maybe just how they would respond to other people who achieved big things, that I would think, oh, as a child, okay, well, that's how my parents, what they appreciate and value. So maybe that's what I need to do
Mm.
to receive their approval and feel valuable. Um, so yeah, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you highlighted rest and peace, because that's the next thing. I think when we look at what shifts and changes, our motivation changes. And then we go, wait a second, if I'm operating from this place of I'm already worthy, then I
Mm,
don't have anything to prove. Now I can rest.
yeah.
And it's just this natural progression from striving to resting.
Yeah. I love it. I'm sure a lot of other women in this group right now can relate. And if you ladies want to put anything in the chat, go for it. Any questions or anything at the end, we can go through them. I just want to give Emily her time so she can share, and then we can answer some questions. So feel free to put anything in the chat as we go. And even if you're watching this recording, I don't know if I can save the chat. I might be able to, but even if you're watching the recording, I think we should be able to do that. Anyhow, if not, you can in the Facebook group, I'll share it there too. Okay, so that's where your background is. So what about for us? Like, how would this apply to, I know we were talking about in our lessons about developing our why and developing like, why is it that we're doing this? And what's our
Mhm.
motivation? And I know I'm sure everybody has a similar motivation, but also different because everybody's, their own person. But how do we, I don't know, how do we explore that? Like, how do we develop a why or motivation based on not having to be something? So
Right.
does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Okay.
stop me if you want me to go a different direction, but
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
jump in.
Yeah. Go for it.
So
Yeah.
when we think about performance, we can get on this hamster wheel of trying to outwork our inner critic. Like your inner critic might be shaming you, might be guilt tripping you, might be beating yourself up, telling you that you should have it figured out by now. Why aren't you farther ahead? Look
Mm,
at so and so, they have it figured out. Like why can't you? Why are you
mm,
still in this spot? And then what we can end up doing is like, I'm just going to work harder. And we might overdo it. We are putting so much hope in our effort. And then, so we're on this cycle, and then maybe we stop doing because it's unsustainable, or we're not getting the results we want. So we are curving down this hamster wheel of it's not working. And then at the bottom is defeat. It's
mhm,
like, I'm just defeated. I can't do it. And that's when the inner critic is really loud and we're not doing much to silence it. And then we end up in this spot of inaction where
mm,
we feel stuck to make choices or feel like it's not working. And then we can muster up some courage to try again and just try harder. And then that perpetuates the cycle. So in order to get off of that, we have to break agreements with lies. We have to break agreements with beliefs that maybe kept us safe and served us well in previous seasons. But like you were talking about those negative thoughts, those negative thought patterns, we have to be able to recognize them and speak truth to them and heal at a foundational level so that we can shift and change. And like when those negative thoughts come in, because we're never going to be able to control all of those thoughts, right? There
mhm,
are intrusive thoughts, there's thought patterns, there's things that are spoken over us or to us. What do we do with those thoughts? Do we
mhm,
stay in defeat or do we try to outwork them? Like those are two choices. Or we can speak truth to them, like you're talking about with affirmations and I am statements and declarations of God's truth over our lives and breaking them down. So,
yeah.
like, then no. So, how do we do this?
Right.
We're going to go to the foundation. Like, what is the foundational belief
Mm,
beneath this?
mhm,
So where did the belief come from? And this can take some digging. This can take some quiet. You can do this on your own. You can do this with your coach. You can do this with a therapist or a trusted friend. But start digging down to like starting with the pattern. What is the pattern that's showing up for me
mm,
when when I'm not losing the weight, when I have when I have a day that I'm eating food that I wish I hadn't, that didn't give me energy,
mhm,
or when I like even taking this outside of fitness, like maybe it's, I don't feel like a good enough Christian on the days where I'm not reading so much Bible or praying or doing this thing, or I don't feel like a good enough mom because look at so-and-so's summer. I don't feel like whenever we're stuck in those patterns, just recognize them for patterns and get curious about them. Like, when does this come up for me? Why did I do that? When do I usually do that? When you get to that pattern, then you can start asking more questions and get to the foundation that I was talking about.
yeah.
So we can get down to that foundation and then speak truth to it. Like, oh man, I feel insecure when I'm not working because
Mm,
I found my value in my ability to contribute and help others.
mhm,
Okay, so now we've found a bigger root than maybe just the pattern is like overworking. Like
mhm,
why are we overworking? And then we can begin to reshape and reframe that why and turn it around to like, wait a second, if I don't want to be doing this out of fear that I'm not good enough, maybe I am already enough, and we can shift and change that. So let me know if you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask you
If
too.
you want to go.
This is really good. I love the foundational piece. So I was thinking too, another factor is high expectations and self-sabotage. So I know, and perfectionism, I guess it's kind of, that's something I can relate to. And I know some of the women can too. It's that idea of if I can't do it, then I'm not going to do it at all. If I can't do
Mhm.
it 100%, then I'm not going to do it, or just having those super high expectations. Um, and then which leads to self-sabotage. I'm sure there's other things too. And sometimes we'll also distract ourselves, or what's the word? When we do other things instead of what we're supposed to be doing in the moment.
Procrastination.
Thank you. That's it. I'm like distracting as I'm distracted, right? Yeah. So yeah, like those things like procrastination, just distraction, things, oh, I really wanted to get my workout in today, but so and so needed me and so called me and da da da. I'm speaking that from my own life, but then I know others, feel the same way, wanting to have these really great intentions and ideas, but then somehow we let life get in the way. And then like, oh man, I missed another day. And then the shame and the whole shame, we talk about the shame and guilt cycle also in our group, but then that whole, like you talked about, that hamster wheel, that spiral starts coming in. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about like perfectionism or, procrastination because of self-sabotage, like I guess self-sabotage because
Mhm.
of high expectations.
Yeah.
Is that
I
yeah.
think there's so many different reasons we self-sabotage. Have you read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks?
No.
Okay. So he talks about we have a threshold for goodness and experiencing joy. So a lot of times we think about suffering and grief and those kind of emotions as like the hardest ones to navigate, but really joy is also very vulnerable because when we embrace joy, then we are embracing risk at the same time. Because if I say I have this, then I might lose it. And so
Mm,
many of us operate in this, like, what if I lose it? What if today isn't as good as yesterday? And then we kind of self-sabotage. So that's one reason. It's like he talks about it as we have a thermometer and
mhm,
or a thermostat rather, that we get to a certain point and the thermostat is like, nope, no more. Like we're going to keep ourselves in this comfortable spot. And that's one of the reasons why we self-sabotage is to stay in this comfortable
mm,
familiarity.
right. Yeah, and I was thinking earlier too, sometimes there's thoughts, it's especially at the beginning of this course, there's a lot of information, just like anything, because it's a lifelong thing. So you're going to get a lot. So at the beginning, it kind of feels like, I tell them, like a fire hose, just like coming at you with information, but you can turn it down and just take it a piece at a time. So I guess that feeling of partially being overwhelmed, there's information, which is true, but then maybe the expectations that we have on ourselves for being successful in the program. So
Mhm.
I feel like maybe sometimes if those expectations are too high, yeah, then the self-sabotage, like I can't perform, so forget it. Or, that all or nothing
Yes.
thinking too is a
Yeah.
thing.
It's all or nothing. It's like, I am either all the way there or I'm quitting. I'm done.
Right. And I remember learning too in the past too, there's also a psychologist friend of mine was telling me that when people make change and it happens sudden, like let's say, you're doing your thing, they're doing, we're doing fasting and intermittent fasting and a keto style diet, so an exercise. So they're doing their thing and gradually things are happening and all of a sudden, wow, their body changed, right? But it just kind of was a result of progressive, living. And then somebody compliments them from the outside. And sometimes, like my friend was telling me, psychologist, she said, yeah, sometimes having a physical change that you want in your mind mentally, when you achieve it, can be scary and end up self-sabotaging because now you're getting attention from other people, or now you have to buy different clothes, or you know how to dress your body. Like it's a different, almost like you're your same person, but your physical nature
Mhm.
changes. So
Yeah.
she told me before that can also be a recipe for self-sabotage, because it feels too uncomfortable to handle these new life situations and this new body, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Although not everybody does, but I could see
Yes.
how that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going back to
Mhm,
like fear of what people think,
mhm,
the fear of failure and the fear of success are two sides of the same coin.
mm,
They, whatever was, if you have a motivation of like fear of what others are going to think, or you want to change for, some other perception, you're going to fear judgment, whether you fail, or fear judgment, whether you succeed.
that's true.
Um,
Hmm.
because we want, again, we want to be loved and we want to be accepted. And a lot of times when we dig down to this fear of what people think, we're afraid of judgment because we're afraid of rejection, because we want to be loved. And that's why we have to get back down to the foundation of we're secure, we're loved, we're cared for by God. And if we can get that peace and we can stay grounded in that, or know how to come back to it when we stray from it, or when lies come in, then that will inform our decisions and inform even our fears around failure or success. If I have it written on a rock
Hmm.
that I got at a retreat, but I have it says, I am approved of by God, or approved of by God, something like that written on the rock.
Hmm.
Because when we look at our failures or successes or what other people think, they're constantly changing and shifting. And
Hmm.
that's normal and that's okay. It's okay for you to run 5 miles today. And I mean, we don't want to, but like if you run 5 miles today, or like 0 for the next 2 weeks, like neither one of those days or events gets to inform our worth and our value.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can stay grounded, and then that fear of success or failure doesn't rattle us as much if we know we're already loved and secure.
Right.
And this isn't just relationship with God, it's relationship with others as well. When we get vulnerable with people and be our full authentic selves and find, oh, okay, so they didn't go anywhere when I succeeded, they didn't go anywhere when I failed, or X, Y, and Z. We need that tethering, that place that is safe.
Yeah. So
For
it's
us.
like, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I was just thinking, so it's when you know who you are, the other
Mhm.
things that you do are like an extra,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like just because like I'm thinking with my kids, I tell this all the time. Like my kids have their own little, specific gifts and talents where they were born with and that they love to do, like music and sports and things. So my husband and I always make sure I especially try to make sure to tell them that they're gifted in these areas and it's awesome and we should use it and minister to other people through it as we can. But it's not who you are. It's not your identity.
Hmm.
It's what you do, but it's not who you are.
Hmm.
So that way, if let's say my son really wanted to, I don't know, win a game, or he got out at first and he, wanted to hit a home run and he was disappointed. So explain to him that him getting out isn't who he is, it's just what he did. Right. So
Exactly.
who he is in Christ is who he is. And I have I actually, about a year or two ago, a friend of mine was telling me that she prays about for her kids and asked the Lord, who are my kids? And she would just journal away. And so I did that one day and I was able to get really cool an understanding of who they are and how God sees them. So I wrote it all out and I shared it with them and put it on their wall. So when they can be reminded of, okay, this is who I actually am. The things that I perform are just an extension of who I am and who I'm created to be. Which is taking work on my part. I mean, I have to do that. I'll be more proactive about that myself. But I love what you said. Yeah, how you said it's like just because like you said about the running 5 miles one day and then 2 weeks later you're doing nothing. That's not who you are. It's just what you did. Um,
Hmm.
how do we remedy that? I mean, what as far as like what do you think like if how do you get from the place of fear and judgment to a place of confidence and peace? And that's kind of like a big question, but like a
Hmm.
practical way. How do is it like daily practice, daily reminders? Is there something we can do like you said, you have it painted on a rock to remind you? How do we spending time daily with God. I don't know. What would you say is a good way to kind of get from
Mm,
the old way to like finding peace?
yeah. So I have a few ideas.
Okay.
The first one, I would say quit something. Quit something. I don't know what it
Okay.
is on your list, whatever comes to mind that you're trying to prove yourself with. And if it's something that's serving you, keep doing it. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at it going, wow, this spiritual practice
Mm-hmm.
or this exercise or this way of talking to my kids or this activity that I think I'm supposed to be doing, even if they're good things, if you feel like you're just doing them because you're supposed to do them, let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And you can train yourself like through, it's almost like exposure therapy, where you are training yourself to not find your worth and value in what you're accomplishing because you're intentionally accomplishing less and you're giving yourself that space. So it's kind of like just jumping in with both feet to do that. And then on the second one, kind of Denise mentioned this, like how it's helpful to listen to other people who are reminding us of this truth. And we're borrowing belief is the way I like to say it. We're borrowing belief from other people for the days that we don't believe it. Because there are days where you have a thought from your inner critic and you're like, excuse me, thanks a lot. I don't believe that. But then there's days that you wake up and you're like, oh, maybe it's true. Maybe I am just not cut out for this, or, and so you can speak truth to yourself. Absolutely. Please do make a habit of doing it. Even when you don't feel like it, write it on your bathroom mirror, put it on your phone lock screen, write it on your hand. I've gone through seasons where I've written notes on my thumb, like right here where I'll see it because I need that. Like even today I woke up feeling rushed and I had to calm and ask a question for myself. Like, how can I slow down and how can I be more aware of God's presence? And you can turn that into a breath prayer, something like slow down, inhale, God is with me, exhale, like just something like that allows us to stop. So that's speaking truth to yourself. But then back to borrowing belief, get somebody else in your corner who you can send a Voxer to, who you can text, who you can call. Like I said, it can be a coach, someone you're paying to be in your corner, somebody who pours belief on you. It can be somebody like an accountability partner or a friend, but somebody who on the days where you're like, man, I just don't think I'm ever going to figure that out. They're like, hey, actually, that's not true. That's your insecurity talking. Because it's not a lot of times, especially when we talk about shame, and like you talked about shame being I am bad instead of what I did was wrong, or maybe I want to make different choices. We say, oh, it means I'm bad. And we can get other people, or wait, I lost my train of thought. I'm back though.
Yep.
Where we need other people to come alongside of us, we can feel like I should be able to do this on my own. And then we sit in the shame. And the faster that we can invite other people into that space and be honest with where we're at, the faster that they can speak truth and life into that too.
It can almost kind of condition each other. Like, yeah, just to kind of go to that yourself, to go to that person when you identify it or whatever other tactic you want to use. And then that other person can be like, oh, nope, what are you talking about? Like, this is kind of like your sounding board. Like this, and even sometimes just saying something out loud to somebody, you hear yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I saying?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh wait, no. And then also too, I've done this before. I'm not sure how helpful this would be, but you can let me know. I just found actually, I was going through some things. We just moved, so I just went through a box and I found a little sheet, and it has like affirmations or I am statements about, but it's scripture based, like who I am in Christ. And then at the end, it has like many prayers that affirm it. Um, does doing that stuff daily help, or is it more to it than just that?
Yeah, I absolutely think it helps.
Okay.
For me, I know I have to be aware of things that start to feel performative.
Okay.
So if it's a prayer that I'm praying and I'm expecting a specific result, I have to be open to different expectations. Like maybe God will
Okay.
bring that out a bit different way. This even happened to me when I started fasting really seriously. So I didn't fast for years because I was pregnant or nursing
Yeah.
or pregnant again for years. I started fasting again and doing it again for the first time from this place of
Mm,
love. And it was really hard for me. Like I
mhm,
had to have some really honest conversations with God. Like, this feels performative. Am I fasting just so you're going to bless me? Like, what am I doing? What's the focus? What's the purpose? And we might have to wrestle through something. And I even quit a fast like halfway through. It was like,
mhm,
this doesn't, it's not okay. And to have the grace for yourself that
mm,
is
mhm,
coming from God. Like you don't have to
mhm,
muster it up inside of yourself. It's coming from
mhm,
God. We have to be open to receiving it.
mhm,
And sometimes we have to open ourselves to receive it by stopping, like I said a minute ago. But like for fasting, it just was really easy at first for it to feel really performative.
mhm,
And then as I did it more to get more grounded with, okay, no, this is just, to get rid of distractions, to hear God's voice more clearly, and um, to be more aware of what's going on in my body when I'm not numbing with food or when I'm not,
mm, mhm,
so there's different reasons why we are doing things, and just being aware of what's going on inside of you.
mhm,
Um, if a daily prayer, if daily affirmations are serving you, keep going. But once they're not anymore, take a look and see why, and be courageous to try
mm.
something else and give yourself grace to quit halfway through an audacious goal that you set yourself, and be willing to pivot.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing is, a lot of, like, the behaviors and things that we do or actions, no matter what it happens to be, um, once judgment comes in about what it is, then I just how to describe this? Um, it changes it all. Then it's like, "Oh, why," even if it's a good thing, then you kind of, like, lose the value of it. I don't know how to describe it, but, I'm gonna take this thought and go back to something else too, but you're talking about fasting and performance. So I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years, maybe more than that, maybe 8 years ago, I was doing my first, like, with our church, we were all fasting together. So I was like, okay, so Monday we did, fasted breakfast, then Tuesday lunch, and then Wednesday dinner, then Thursday, I think the whole day or something. Anyway, so that first time was my first time doing a long fast. And so towards the end, I was feeling so good. I was, hearing so much from God. I was getting so much clarity. And I'm like, wow. And I just felt his presence. I was praying. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to lose this, because it was about time to break my fast. And I'm like, but Lord, I don't want to lose this. And it was cute because he told me, he's like, I want your relationship. I don't want your religion. He's like, I just want you with me. I don't need you to just keep doing it because you're supposed to, but I want you to do it because you want to do it with me. I was like, wow. So for me, whenever I think of things, I'm like, am I doing this religiously, or am I doing it for relationship?
Mhm.
So that was like the very end of that fast too. I'm like, okay, God, you brought it home. Like, brought it all full circle. So a lot of times I think, yeah, just keep that in mind. Is it relationship, or is it my own religion? And
Mhm.
he didn't want that. He didn't want my idol, for me to be worshiping that idol. So yeah, that was really cool. Okay.
Mhm.
So then the other thing too, we mentioned prior, we were talking about how about our why, about like why are we doing this? I think you mentioned something about that. Like, why are we, I guess, exploring the reason why we're doing this,
Mhm.
and then I guess going in and seeking God's love as the root.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that, yeah? So
Mhm.
maybe you can share
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So this is like tying it back into our motivation. What is our
Okay.
motivation? What's your motivation for being in this space? And getting really honest. I think a lot of times we like the first answer that comes up rather than like, okay, well, what's underneath that? And then being willing to see, like, okay, that's actually fear. The reason I feel like I should be doing that is maybe fear or shame. And if there's, I will caveat, if there's no story there, you don't have to make one. You don't have to let it. Maybe that is your why. But if there's something um, say, I don't know if anybody wants to share their why, but um, if your why is tied to you're so deeply loved and you want to love well, it spills out into you first because you get to love yourself.
Mm,
And we have to love ourselves, obviously from the well of God's love. Like he's filling us up. When we stop performing, when we stop trying to prove something, it's like taking the cap off of a bottle of water. We're letting his love come in, because when we're trying to prove it, it's like, no, no, thank you. I will show that I deserved this. I earned this. And he's like, no, I just want to give it to you. But when we can let
mhm,
his love fill it up, then we can love ourselves well.
mhm, mhm,
And that's what I think of when I think of peace and being grounded,
mhm,
is when we're okay with ourselves, not when I reach a certain weight, or when I reach a certain goal, or when I achieve, or when so-and-so sees me, when so-and-so can see me on stage, or when I achieve this, like those like you talked about, like successes and failures, Lauren Daigle's song You Say says, am
mm,
I more than just the sum of every high and every low? When
mm,
we're worried about what other people would think and not grounded in love, um, we tend to define ourselves by our highs and our lows, by that defeat and that extra work. Um, so shifting our why. How do we start shifting our why? We get down to the foundation of what it is first, and then we start speaking truth, like those affirmations and I am statements and scriptures and um prayers directly to the foundation of, like, the lesser whys, because
mm.
fear will motivate you, shame will motivate you, guilt will motivate you, but it will only get you so far.
Yeah,
Where, yeah.
I can imagine. I know. And then it feels like with the shame, guilt, and fear, it's
Hmm.
always changing and shifting. Like the thing,
Right.
it's not, there's no stability in it. It's just, yeah, that's where the fear comes in, because it's not knowing what I'm chasing now, or I just did this, now I have to do that. And, it's like the all over, but with, like you said, it's the foundation is in Christ is love. So when you have and recognize and feel and experience his love, all that stuff is like silly. It doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't even can't even be in the same place at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
And
it's a totally different thing.
yeah. And I will say, I think we're afraid of love.
Hmm.
We're afraid to let go of our rules.
Mm,
We're afraid to let go of the structure. We can be afraid to let go of the shame. We can be afraid to let go of what other people think, because they do motivate you.
mm, hmm.
They do, like you said, Kim said, they're not good company for the long haul, and it's not from God. Exactly. They're not somebody you really want in your passenger seat, right? And when we have those as our motivation, we can feel like defeated and less than all the time when we're not measuring up. Um,
Hmm.
and love can, I lost my train of thought again, guys.
I know it's okay. There's so many good things. I know it's
I
tough.
know, right?
I
I
know.
shouldn't have read the comment, I think.
That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So, okay. So I guess kind of wrapping it up so I can have we can answer some questions if there's any, but,
Yeah.
so what would be the thing that you would recommend? So, okay. So this is a course for women for weight loss, to feel their best, to be their best. Um, but the goal too is for self-acceptance. That's a big part of this. A big part of our group is praying for breakthrough, self-acceptance, and grace. Those are like our
Mhm,
big
mhm.
things. Because in typical weight loss programs, it's about, if you don't do this, then forget it, or shame and guilt and so on. But this is love, grace, peace, all those things, and acceptance. Um, what would you say would be a good takeaway for them as they go through this program? Um, and maybe come up, and maybe sometimes they might have on days and maybe they have off days. I mean, what's a good way to kind of reframe their process
Mm,
as they go?
yeah. Um, one of my favorite affirmations, like, I am not my accomplishments. I am not my contribution. I am loved. I am lovable, like right the
Mhm,
way I am.
mhm,
And we I remembered where I was going with the fear of love. We fear love because we're afraid that it won't. We're afraid that it's not okay. As
mm,
Christian women, we're afraid that it's not okay to love ourselves. Maybe it really is that I am a worm and I'm worthless, or all of these messages that we can get from religious Christianity,
mhm,
and remembering that we have been cared for and that Jesus died for us. Like, that's the takeaway I would love for people to get, is just remembering that you are already worthy.
mhm,
That you don't have to, like, your desire for more energy or to lose weight can flow from a place of love
mhm,
so much, because like that will motivate you beyond anything that you should be doing, or that what other people think, because you're already precious the way you are. And have you read David Benner's book, The Gift of Being Yourself?
no, but that sounds really good.
It's amazing. And it's
Uh-huh.
all about self-acceptance
Mm,
and basically meeting God right where we're at. So when we're learning to accept ourselves, we're learning to meet God right where we're at, not where we
mm,
think we're supposed to be.
mhm.
Not after we lose the weight, not after we figure out this theological question, not after we get this spiritual discipline put into place, but right now.
Mm.
And it can feel backwards. Like, we're not allowed to accept ourselves. I'm supposed to beat myself up. I'm supposed to, like, if I don't even know who said this because I saw it on a meme, but it was, if beating yourself up was going to work, it would have worked by now.
That's true.
Like, if that was going to get you the results, if fear and shame and guilt were going to work, they would have worked by now.
I
So let's
know.
try something different. And
Mhm,
when we can see through a lens of God accepts me the way I am, maybe I can courageously, I mean, he's holy.
mhm,
He's perfect. And if he can accept me the way that I am, I can learn to just be okay with who I am. And rather than judging who I am and how I show up,
mm,
um, we can get curious. Why do
mm,
I do this? Where did this
mm,
come from? Um,
mhm,
and what is my motivation? And then curiosity leads us to a much more gracious approach to ourselves. So
mm, mhm,
just have so much grace for yourself on the days that you win and on the days that you lose, and be secure in who God is and who he says you are.
mhm,
Because so often we as Christians, I'll leave you with this. So often
mhm,
we think, who is God and what did he do? And what am I supposed to be doing?
mhm,
And those are good questions.
mhm,
But a better question is, who is God and who am I?
mm, mhm,
And how does that inform what I'm choosing to do?
mhm.
Because sometimes we get the cart before the horse and start doing and achieving before we are sure of who he says we are. So
Yeah,
yeah, we
yeah.
want to get that order correct. And then
Uh-huh.
we have good companions for the journey, and it's sustainable.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And that's the foundational truth, is that Jesus died on the cross so we don't have to strive and be. We already are. Like there's no more to it. We're a creation of his love. We're an extension of his love. We're his art piece, or his
Mm,
artwork and his masterpiece already, right?
mhm,
And everything
right.
else is just an add-on, or um it's caring for his masterpiece. So it's,
Exactly.
and a lot of times, majority of programs, not all, but there's majority of weight loss, fat loss, or however you want to call it, programs are, they don't bring God into it. And that's why there's a lot of guilt, shame, oh, I failed, I'm a failure. And that's why people keep going back to it. They lose the weight and then they self-sabotage, or whatever happens, and then they come back to it. But it's like a bad relationship, like an abusive relationship, because they never get to understand, like you said, they're putting the cart before the horse. So they're not really understanding the foundation of who they are, whose they are, and how much they're loved despite what they do. But what we're doing together as a group is just an add-on. It's like glorifying God by taking care of our bodies to be the best version of what God created in us. And a lot of times too, like you said, sometimes women feel like, oh, I'm not supposed to be vain, or which is true. We don't want pride either, but there's nothing wrong with taking care of your body the best that you can. So I think maybe that's why people maybe feel a little bit cautious about bringing God into it, because it feels very veiny.
Mm.
But God created us and the beauty in us. And he showed me that one time too. It's like my goal personally is to be who God created me to be, emotionally, but especially physically. Like, what can I chisel down in my wellness? What can I get rid of, like the bad stuff? What can I get rid of to be the optimal version of what God intended for me to be? Then my my God's intention for me plus extra baggage. Like, I just want to chisel it all down and just be, almost in my heaven, well, as close as I can to the perfection body that God has for me in heaven.
Mm.
It's like, and I felt like, why not? Why not do that? Why not be your best? So for me, it's a form of worship in the process. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Awesome. So thank you. Yeah, love is it. I mean, that's always it. That's foundational to all of this, is coming from a place of love instead of a place of rejection or guilt. Um, and I always tell my kids, like, whose voice are you listening to? Are you worshiping the enemy, or are you listening to God? And we have discernment for that, so we can say, okay, Satan, I hear what you're saying. You're a liar. Okay, God, what are you going to tell me? And then go with that um, instead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's really good.
awesome.
Really.
Okay, so before we go, so where can they find you? How do they desert? Do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook? Do you have a link where they can find your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I can put it on the Facebook post as well as I can drop it in the chat too.
Okay,
But I have a podcast called Abundant Grace, and
that's a
the
great name for us too. Abundant Grace,
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
hmm
The themes I cover there are relationship with God. I do talk about some healing from spiritual abuse. I talk about confidence and just being who God created you to be and stepping fully into that
Mm,
because we are already worthy. So you can find that on most of the podcast players.
okay,
That's Abundant Grace. And then as far as social, I'm most active on Instagram,
okay.
that at emily.abundantgrace. And then I would love to invite you,
hmm
ladies, to check out my course. That's on my website. Emily K. Lewis, that's Emily, the letter K, and LOUIS.com
Okay.
/ connected.
Yeah, put it
So
in the chat for sure if you can
yeah,
leave us
I
some.
will.
Okay.
So the course is all about that foundational piece. And right now I have the course it's only $47, and it
Okay.
is 4 weeks of you have lifetime access to it, but I structured it to make it easy for people to get through it on their own. Just meeting God right where we're at and growing that relationship with ourselves while growing that relationship with Him.
Mm,
So, in a nutshell, it's a refresh for your relationship with God and a confidence boost for that. So,
I love
those
it.
are some of the places you can find me.
Yay. That's awesome. Yeah, put it in the chat. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions here. Go to the top. Yeah, so Kari says, she said, this is so good, totally in line with what God was showing me this morning. Isn't that so cool? I love it when that happens. Like, he's already on it. He's like, I got it. I'm here. That's so cool. That's awesome, Kari. So Denise says, it seems society makes women that way more than men. For me, it's been recognizing it and changing that negative self-talk when it happens. That's why it's so helpful to listen to people like Emily, Cynthia, and other positive forces that help us to change it. But it definitely takes some time. Yeah, that's true. It takes time. So Denise, I'm gonna ask you this one real quick. So you said seems society makes women that way more than men. What were you describing?
So I just feel like, we've seen over the years all of those, the magazines and this and that you're expected to look a certain way, be a certain way.
Right.
And then it's always women, it's not men. You know what I mean? So I think that was such a lesson with this and with, everything we're doing. And just over time, I know we've been exposed to it for a little while now, but
Mhm.
just recognizing that it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
And don't, like Emily was saying, like you say, like, don't beat yourself up. Just
Mhm.
like I said this later in the
Mhm.
chat, just to add it, like, love yourself where you're at, the whole
Mm.
thing, why
Mhm.
you're going through it, all of it, because I have recently learned, like you said, God said, don't beat yourself up. Like, stop it.
Right? I know. Yeah, I was thinking too, I'm sure you've all have seen the different mannequins they have in the windows now at the mall with the heavier ones and the skinny ones and the fit ones and all the different body types. So for a long time, my husband, we would go by the mall. We were in Florida and they had a lot of them there. And he would say, why are they doing that? And for me, I'm like, I think it's great, body appreciation, acceptance, all that stuff. But then God spoke to me about this, interestingly enough, last week, I think. And he was telling me, that's okay. Body acceptance, of course, he loves everybody. It's a good thing, but don't let it fall into complacency. Don't let it be your permission to be complacent. He wants us to be our best. I'm getting chills thinking about it. That was so cool. So yeah, he was showing me the word complacency. He's like, it's okay. Yeah, we love everybody. But don't let that be your model of what you want to be and fall into complacency, but still he calls us to excellence in all areas. I know it's, we're not perfect, but we can strive for, do our best to do that. So so yeah,
Yeah.
so
I
oh yeah,
think
go
to
ahead.
me, it's interesting when we think I focused a lot of what I've done towards women and then realizing that our men experience this too, just in a very different way than we do. Women do get told what to do, what to look like, what to be, what they can and cannot be. Whereas men, the predominant language around their worth and what they're allowed to not be is they're not supposed to be emotional. They're supposed to always have it together,
Mm,
so it impacts them just in very unique ways than women.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So and then she mentioned also, she said maybe focus on just appreciating the joy or other emotion that we have and can be grateful for, even when we know it will go away for a while. We know it'll come back again. That's true. Yeah. It's kind of like being mindful, just being in the moment. Yeah. And just realizing, yeah, what you have. I know it's so easy to live in the future and the past, and that's when we get stressed out and anxious and depressed. But just, yeah, that's what God showed me a while ago too, is peace is right now, like where we are right now. So that's cool. And then Kim, yeah, Kim says it's knowing your true identity in Christ. I know that's just so powerful, and it's such a small statement. It's so easy to just say, but there's so much power in that. There's so much depth in it. Like if we really, and I might even challenge everybody to this week is, um, take a moment, in your quiet time and prayer time to just ask God who am I in you? Who do you see me as? And then just writing out, whatever comes to mind or whatever you feel He's speaking to you, or it might even come later in the day when you're just doing something mundane like folding laundry or driving or whatever, or in the shower. My shower is like where me and God meet, or brushing my teeth, or working out really. So yeah, so maybe, yeah, I would challenge you all, just really take a moment and jot down, you ask God, who am I? Or just listen and see what He says, and have that in front of you, because that would be so powerful. Okay, so Annette says, I've always thought that what you do is never the barometer of your worth. Yeah, what you do. Yes. Yeah, so that's true, right? Yeah, what you do is never the barometer of your worth. Yeah, it's who you are, right? That's what we're learning. Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to add, is she here, Annette, to that? You got it? Okay. And Denise, thank you, Emily. Yeah, so Denise says we can be an encourager for others and be their biggest cheerleader if we can learn to do that for ourselves. Amen. That's so true. I know it's so easy to do it for other people, but then doing it for yourself takes practice. And especially I sometimes think about like treating ourselves like we would treat our children, or our child, our inner child, like our child self. How would us as an adult speak to your child self um, right now? So that could be really valuable. Kim says, I think it's really valuable to understand God's heart, His unchanging nature, and His crazy over the top love and devotion for us. we can pull continually from his powerful love and his value for us. Oh yeah, that's like never ending. Yeah, you said continually pull. That's true. And it's just a matter of being reminded of that. Um, yeah, and Annette says willing to pivot. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, Kim says God is not religious. Yeah, that's true. Thank goodness. Shame, guilt, and fear aren't good company for the long haul, and it's not from God. Yes. Annette says you need a powerful, loving why. Yeah, to replace the performance-based structure. So true. Yeah, it all comes back to love. Thank you, Denise. Let's see. She's got another lesson to just love ourselves through the whole journey and appreciate what we're able to do when we're able to do it. Yep, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. And then Emily, yeah, so Emily has her link here. I can even, I'll copy it and I'll paste it, or maybe you can even message it to me and I'll put it with the recording on there so they can find you. And thank you, Emily. Wonderful insights. Thank you, says Annette. Kim says attacks are different. What do you mean by that, Kim?
We were talking about men and women.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I tell women to ask the Lord for one word from the Lord to meditate on. Yeah, that's good. On that, the Lord is thinking about you today. I love it. Yeah. Ooh, I'd love to do that. Just wake up in the morning. Okay, God, what are you thinking about me today? And for a while there, he kept having me go. I would just open my Bible. Okay, God, what do you want to tell me? I'm just going to open and see, right? Just for fun. And it kept turning to Song of Solomon. I'm like, that's weird. Okay. But then I'm realizing as I read it day after day that he was telling me about how he sees me, how beautiful and how wonderful and how much he longs for me and all, like a love letter to me. I'm like, oh, now I get it. Because at first I was kind of guarded. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to hear this right now. But yeah, it was really powerful. So that's something that I could definitely take away and say to myself more of what he's thinking. So, okay, sometimes I tell women, okay, yeah, one word. Okay, awesome. Okay. All right, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you, Emily. We'll close this out and, I'm going to pray before we go. So thank you, Lord, so much for this moment, for this opportunity, Lord, that you ordained for us this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're at. Lord, thank you for just clothing us and with your love, Lord. I just feel your presence, Lord. Thank you for just giving us a nice warm hug, showing us how much you love us, Lord, genuinely, and that you've created us within your love, Lord, with love as a amazing artist, Lord, and Lord, that your love can flow through us and out of us and around us, Lord, that we can be an extension of that to other people, Lord, that we can fully experience it every morning, Lord. I pray that as each of us wake up every morning and as we go to bed at night, Lord, that we can bask in and abide in your love and just soak in it, Lord, and it'll just naturally be a part of us. And anything that is not love will be a foreign thing, Lord, that we can immediately identify it because we're clothed and soaking in your love in the morning and night and throughout the day, Lord. Thank you for Emily. Thank you for the wisdom that you've given her through the trials that she had. And Lord, I pray that we continue to grow through this every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. And I'll post the recording in our group. Bye. Thank you.